All right, welcome to the Armchair Commanders podcast. My name is Jon.
And I'm Jack.
We're so happy to have you all join us in the immortal words of Captain Tom Dodge. Let's kick this pig.
Let's kick this pig indeed. Wow, and let me say, what a movie. It is the most movie of all time. Yeah, a lot to unpack with this one. So let me just come out and say it. I liked this movie. You'll notice the hesitation I had there. It was a fun movie. It's not
just a
win
like.
You know what I meant, but like I'm not prepared to fully commit. I'm not ready to love again, but I have commitment issues enough to say I love this movie. Sorry, my lack of therapy is bleeding into my creative outlet. I'll work on that. But
you know what? I'll take a like.
But let me be clear. It was a fun movie. Like, I really ought to stop saying like, but
it's a hard habit. I do the same thing. I noticed it when I started editing our past couple of episodes. I was like, oh, that's an annoying habit on my part.
Yeah, and I need to kick it. Yeah. Either I stop saying like so much or I stop drinking. So likes got to go. But
to be fair, what are you drinking tonight, by the way?
Same thing, Miller High Life.
You gotta start. I am putting so much effort into coming up with relevant drink choices for this show, and here you are just grabbing a 6-pack of any devil may care drink that you can come by.
Just the look of disappointment on your face when I told you that. Oh,
to be fair, there is nothing wrong with your drink choice. I'm just saying, let's get some creativity for next week.
There's nothing wrong with your drink choice, but fuck you. Also, we can say fuck on this podcast, right?
Yeah, I have it set to explicit, so we're fine.
Oh, fuck yeah. But anyway, all right, then what's your drink of choice for next week? Actually, don't say, because that's going to be incentive for our dear listeners to stick with us.
That is
my
drink today, because we are watching a submarine movie. I figured what more fitting drink than some Sailor Jerry's rum.
Oh man, I wish I got some Sailor Jerry's.
It's my go-to right now, actually.
It's decent.
Yeah, I mean,
good choice.
It's not terribly expensive. It's like at least where I'm at, it's like $1 or $2 more than Captain Morgan, but I'm enjoying it more than I would Captain Morgan. So
yeah, man, I'll put more effort into next week's drink. You have my word.
Okay.
But so it was a fun movie, and I've said that like, oh Jesus, 3 times now. But
do you want me to leave that burp in there?
Might as well. But and I really got to stop saying but as well. And I say that too much. Damn it, I'm getting too introspective. It's only been 4 minutes. So this was a fun movie, and it was really a time capsule into 1990s, for better for worse.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I'm like, oh yeah, that used to be a thing. Like what was it? Stepanek. Like the first scene that we see Stepanek come up, and he's wearing a mesh tank top, and God, what kind of pants? Anyways, it was as 90s as an outfit could get.
Yeah. And just, casually dropping the R word in conversation with Rob Schneider.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that did not age very well in this.
No.
Like the casual use of the R word, and then also the the casual sexism towards the Lieutenant Lake character.
Oh man, yeah, just no subtlety whatsoever.
Like, I understand it is a 90s film, and the 90s, and granted, not to say that today's climate is super swell for women, but my thing here is I'm battling the internal discussion between this is the 90s and we treated women shittier then than we do now, but also it's one of those, if you think about it, just in the history of the military, women have always had to really earn their spot regardless of what the job was. um and we see that even recently, where I think it was 2020-ish. It was right around the time that the COVID stuff kicked off. There was a lot of news articles and a big discussion, because the U.S. Army Ranger School graduated their first female trainee, and it was one of those things that was like, it was such an uphill battle to even get a female into Ranger School. I think there was a half dozen or so that had tried before this person did, and I forget what her name is, but um, it was like a really big deal when she finally passed it. But even when she passed it, she still faced a lot of criticism and scrutiny. And you had a lot of people who were like, "Oh, they made the standards easier for her," or this, that, or the other, or like favorites, all that nonsense. Um, so it's one of those, it's one of those things that you see, or you think of it as a time capsule of the 90s, but but you can still very clearly see it in today's military culture, even if it's not the like juvenile, like, ha ha ha, we stole her uniform and shrank it so her boobs look bigger.
Yeah, that scene was oofta. It's certainly a lot to unpack.
Like, I appreciate the fact that, like, the Captain Dodge character, he's Team Lake, but also he's not like 100% squashing it. Like, he still punishes his crew for pulling this dipshit maneuver, but it's very like, I'm sorry, boys will be boys type bullshit.
Yeah.
I said all of my male privilege.
Yep. That card that's
should
checked.
Should I say something offensive to offset it?
No, please. It's too early to get canceled in this series.
Or are we set with me being on this side of the spectrum to make up for my atom bomb jokes?
First off, I started the atom bomb jokes, and my God. Ooh, yeah, that was something. What was I gonna say? I'm gonna take your prompt and say what scene in this movie stood out to you, because I already got mine.
It's that's a hard question. If I was a better person, I probably would have thought of that, because usually I pose that question to you.
Aha! You heard it here first,
me,
folks. I got him. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
There was one scene that really made me think, and this is a weird thought that I had when this came up, was how every year or every other year there's like the in comedy,
Yeah.
like I think it was like 2004 was Anchorman.
Oh,
And
yes.
when the in comedy comes, like everybody says
Memes.
the memes, the funny one liners. When we were in high school, the Hangover trilogy was the big deal.
Yep.
And
God,
that made me so. It's not that I think the Hangover series is a bad series. It wasn't.
it overstayed its welcome.
That, and it just wasn't really for me. Like,
And
I get it. Like, it's funny. It just wasn't my kind of humor.
And
it, go ahead and say what you're going to
oh,
say.
but I was just gonna say on that topic, the go-to comedy for at least my middle school was either Beer Fest or Super
Uh,
Bad.
Das Boot.
Das Boot, yeah. Like people were quoting that. We were talking about it. Even I saw it, and I was a goody two shoes back then.
Yeah, well,
And
that's when you're watching Comedy Central when your parents are at work or some shit.
and
Um,
like
and it's the like highly TV edited version too.
and in elementary, I believe it was the American Pie movies, and like you said earlier, Anchorman, and it was it was always the kid from the sketchy home that had watched all of those and had them all on DVD, the unrated version. He was a
Yeah,
happening guy.
yeah, or it's like you always made friend with the one kid that had American Pie on his iPod when you were taking like bus trips.
See, I was never
Let's look
the
at boobs on a 2-inch screen.
all five men together. Yeah, straight guys. But I
Two
was
dudes in
never
a hot tub.
I was never a student athlete, but I heard all about those varsity trips where they'd be in like all in one hotel room or all on the bus just watching these movies on yeah, like you said, a shitty laptop or an iPod screen.
Back in the day when the
The good
iPod
old
screen
days.
was like a 1-inch by 1-inch piece of shit.
Yeah, we're getting old, DP. I think we lost our Zoomer audience with these stories.
I saw a TikTok the other day, and I'm not a TikTok person. I fit that boomer meme of I'm an adult who watches his TikToks on Instagram Reels 3 weeks after they're popular. The
Yeah,
um
I watch them 4 weeks after they're popular on YouTube.
so I saw this TikTok turned real, and it was this guy. He's like a military TikToker, and he was talking about how he had a bunch of new recruits join his unit and how he's like in charge of them. And one of his recruits was like, "When were you born?" And he's like, "93." And the recruit's like, "Oh, you were born in the late 1900s." And it's like,
Oh,
"Listen here, you little shit.
I would have made him drop down and give me 50. Give me
I don't.
1900 push-ups.
You can give me 1993 push-ups, you little fucker."
God, that is so wild to think about.
It
And
is, and especially considering like our entire lives, we've always casually thrown out the late 1700s or the late 1800s, and like we're just far enough removed now that people can pull that shit on us. But
oh,
back to my original thought, or my thesis, if you will, about you know the popularity of certain films and how they inspire people to
yeah.
change their language accordingly. I looked up. So this film came out in '96, and in my preliminary research, I am shocked to find out that Braveheart beat this film out at the Oscars. Like the
No.
disrespect, right?
No, really? Wait,
Yeah.
Braveheart's on the list, right?
It should be. It might not be, but it should be.
Yeah, because I read through that entire list today, and that's how I caught the dread discrepancy.
Yes, for
But
our listeners, the comic book movie Dread is on our list because I made an argument for War on Crime as a war film. So
I'll allow it. We're playing fast and loose, but I'll allow it. One of these
uh,
days, I'm going to propose a romantic comedy on the grounds that all is fair in love and war, so ergo it should be allowed.
this had the potential for being a romantic comedy, but
I'm
I
glad it didn't.
respect I respect the fact that um, they mostly kept Lieutenant Lake and Captain Dodge separate. Like obviously, there's the scene where she like gives him a quick kiss, but it's like like thanks for supporting me deal, not I'm into you thing.
It was still kind of weird in my opinion, but
Yeah, it did feel out of place.
yeah.
Um, but it wasn't so egregious. at least in my
Yeah.
mind. But again, back to my thesis. Um, the other, I looked at other comedy films that came out the year that this film did, and the two, there was quite a few, but the two big, most notable ones would be The Nutty Professor
Avant-garde.
and Billy Madison.
Which I still haven't watched, by the way.
That that shocks me, but there's a lot of films in the world. But Bill, this was like prime Adam Sandler.
But
So
yeah.
I'd have to imagine that Billy Madison was like number one everywhere. I didn't really get into the numbers, but it made me think. I was like, of all those idiots that I went to high school with, middle school with, where they're just quoting The Hangover day after day after day, I I found myself thinking after the scene where Dodge asks the character Sonar, is like just a throwaway comment where he's like, "Hey, you hearing anything out there?" And it's like, "Oh, not much. Just some biological creatures. Sounds like a couple of crabs duking it out." And that one line, I was like, there had to have been at least one high school where that was like the thing to say every fucking day.
Yep, just duking it out.
Because like I won't lie, I laughed like so hard at that one line.
So yeah, that the scene that stuck out to you.
Yeah, just because of the thought that it had.
Yeah. It really does feel like a meme that should have been but wasn't. But so my favorite scene in the movie, it had to have been the dive test. Like I was not expecting a scene that tense in what I was told was a comedy.
Yeah, that is. I greatly appreciated uh, that bit of seriousness in this film. The other thing that reminded me of, or like brought to the forefront of my mind, is that this film is meant to be a parody of like the submarine movies genre as a whole. Um, which you don't really think of like, oh, like submarine movies are their own genre, but I mean, there there's so many submarine war movies that there really is, and they have all these tropes, and one of the big tropes in submarine movies is the taking the submarine to its limits and like the like water spraying everywhere shit.
And you can hear the ship creaking.
Yeah.
And I did greatly appreciate that part with the old mechanic, and he taped the ends of that wire to the walls, and he's like, keep your eye on this string, it's gonna squeeze us like a beer can. And it gradually has more and more slack to it as the dive test goes on, and
The thing.
the captain's just smiling and laughing, and you can
Yeah.
tell. I really genuinely felt like it was something old timers in the Navy do to fuck with the new recruits.
Right. The thing that killed me about that old mechanic is like, oh, we have to bring this really old dude onto the crew because he's the only one who can work on diesels. He's the only guy in the fleet who was on diesel subs left. I'm like, guys, diesel engines are still really prevalent all over the military. Like, it's not a lost and forgotten skill. Like, they very easily could have grabbed some 20-year-old dude to be their mechanic.
Yeah, some young gun, like the rest of the crew, like yeah, young new recruits fresh out. What's the
Boot camp?
I was gonna say it's not boot, is it? Or is it?
Or
I'm
like
sorry to our
advanced
listeners. I don't know a
individual
lot about Navy.
AIT, which stands for something training.
So boot.
It,
Let's just I don't know, man.
their job school after boot, basically.
Oh, okay. Where was I going with this? I already lost my train of thought. Crap. Yeah,
Brought
the
in
old.
a young whippersnapper.
Oh yeah, this is what I was gonna ask. Sonar, like that is some god tier hearing. Like they give a really shoddy explanation, like, oh, he has too good of hearing, like he was a security risk, and I was just there like, well, then he would have gotten fired, right? Like not just
Right.
demoted. Like his hearing is good enough where he's pretty much guaranteed a spot on any ship he wants in the Navy. Like who wouldn't want to spring for a guy that can tell the exact amount of money dropping in a sub hundreds of yards up?
Yeah, him having great hearing is not the issue here. It's the fact that he's an idiot and doesn't know when to shut his mouth.
I mean, how dumb is he compared to the rest of the new recruits that your average ship sees?
I don't know, the scene where Sonar and Dodge are like pantomiming to each other when they're like bottom out on the seabed would
Okay,
prove.
in his defense, I didn't know what the Dodge was suggesting at first either. So I kind of feel that, like, I don't pantomime well, I've found, but
You would have thought that a simpler solution would have been just to scribble something out on a piece of paper.
but they would hear the scribbling or something.
Like, I know our submarine technology is super advanced. I don't think it's that good.
Yeah, you're right. I just wanted to argue. God, there I am saying again. But I did it again. I sound like a troglodyte.
Oh, don't pull that.
It's a classic insult. Yeah, I'm gonna look it up right now and define troglodyte. Thanks, Google. Yeah, like a prehistoric person that lived in a cave, or a cave dweller. I sound like a cave dweller.
For some reason, I was confusing with trilobite, like the little sea cockroach.
I'm one of those too, so you're not wrong.
I've always wanted to have a trilobite fossil.
And it kind of relates to our under the sea adventure theme of this week.
Under the sea, under the sea. I so going back to the whole like submarine movie genre thing. Um, there was a couple of things that I was like looking for that I was actually like really happy never occurred. Like something that's super common in submarine movies is always the like depth charge scene that like rocks the
Yep.
boat and makes it spew water and whatnot. And we still get a spewing water scene, but it's not from depth charges, and I so appreciate that. And the other trope that I really appreciate missing in this one is the like launching of a torpedo and then it like scrapes alongside of a boat, like barely missing it.
Yeah, the lack of a depth charge scene. It wouldn't have really fit with the war games. And for a second there, towards the end, like, yes, I knew
The
that
admiral's gone crazy.
I thought he was gonna kill that guy. Like,
I if he could have gotten away with it, I bet he would have.
man.
Also, can we talk about how creepily he said, "You've been targeted"?
Yeah, I did like that part where he was like, "Oh yeah, you got me. However, I already fired the torpedo, so you're gonna join me in death." Sherrod, you are. And another scene I really liked was the pirate scene. There, I will admit, there was a part where I thought, "Oh my god, they're actually gonna kill Rob Schneider." We've all thought it, but these guys are actually gonna do it.
I genuinely love that scene, especially when Buckman looks over to Nitro and is like, "Where'd you get that bird?" He's like, "It's a parrot from the
It's a
Caribbean."
parrot. It's our dinner
Well,
tonight.
don't let it fly away.
He just has a raw chicken tied
Yeah.
to his shoulder.
With some like where did he get the fucking twine to tie it to his shoulder?
And I love that everyone's pirate uniforms was obviously made at the drop of a dime, but the captain had a full pirate regalia just on him.
If I was the captain of a submarine, I would 100% have a
Oh,
pirate costume ready.
oh, absolutely.
There's probably a reason why I don't like. I'm not in the military and don't have command of expensive shit like that. See, that's what happens when you have too much power, is you do dumb shit like that with government property.
I wish I was powerful enough to abuse power. And you can put that in the big book of Jack quotes.
You know,
Talking about piracy and the power. Yeah, when he drops into the fisherman's net, and there he was like, "The United States Navy thanks you for your service." I was like, "Does this regularly happen?"
here's my thing: is how did all the like frigates and the Orlando that was chasing them not hear them make like an open radio call to a fishing boat?
Maybe they were like super duper brief about it. I don't know, man.
Submarine, they're stealthy.
Maybe I like to think that they just surfaced and flagged them down, scaring the fishermen.
Like
Yeah,
you will help us.
you will help us.
I mean, look at the cannon on top of that boat.
Yeah, if they asked, yeah, I wouldn't have much choice.
You know what's crazy to me is that like the premise of this movie is not all that entirely out there or like
It really isn't.
implausible. Because the thing is that like I would guarantee there has to be some diesel boats still in like the mothball fleet. Because I mean, there's like the military has a hard time letting shit go, especially when they've paid a lot of money for it. But the other part of it too is like the whole premise of this exercise was to have essentially an impossible enemy or a really unconventional enemy, and we're going to do this war game to like test ourselves against this potential adversary. And like the army has a unit like that. Like I forget where they're stationed out of, but there is a unit in the army that's a couple hundred dudes that their everyday job is to be professional bad guys for the regular army to like test themselves against.
Wait, so who are these bad guys?
So they're also members of the army, and they usually have like infantry and combat experience. But after like they'll take these guys who have this combat experience or like specialty training, and they'll basically be like, it's like this movie where it's like, okay, we want you to go out and be a super unconventional like military force, or we want you to be terrorists, and then basically the army cycles in regular units to test them, basically.
Actors.
Yeah, essentially, it's like role playing, but with machine guns.
I did see a listing on Indeed a while back that they were looking for civilian actors to play civilians in a war game.
Woo!
Like doing fake
I'm
normal.
getting paid to be a war crime victim.
Yeah, like pretty much. Like you were paid to do normal things like go to the bank, or I think they like gave you a job and a schedule, and you could, if you want, like go to a cafe to eat or go do this. However, it was like during military lockdown where you'd have to go through checkpoints and stuff, and they were like you were selected at random, like, okay, you're a terrorist and your mission is to try to get a gun or something past this checkpoint, or you have to sneak this bomb into their base without them noticing. and they're on alert for that, but they can't just mow down every civilian. They actually have to go through protocol.
That kind of reminds me of like when I was in college, and I think you actually were there, or you weren't there, but I remember talking to you the day I did it.
I think I know what story you're about to tell, but tell it for the audience.
So like when I was in college, I wanted a few extra dollars, and a local SWAT team came to the college and was like, "Hey, college kids, do you want to be role players in our, our exercises?" And so essentially all day long, they gave me like an airsoft gun, and essentially they did like active shooter training, and like me and a half dozen other guys were the baddies basically. And it was super fun being the bad guy because it's like you don't have to play by any rules.
Yeah.
But it's not a bad gig. I don't know what it would be like doing that full time, but you know, my experience as a broke college kid getting shot with paintball guns, like it wasn't that bad of a deal.
Huh. Totally would have done that with you.
Dude, those spots filled up so quickly. I remember I was checking my email like right as it got sent out, and I was probably like the third person to claim a spot or to like put in for it. And that literally was like I got my email out in the time it took me to type it. Like there was no like me like, oh, shouldn't I not? I was like, no, my Saturday's free and I want a couple extra bucks.
Man, sounds like a good time though.
It does. And that brings up another point though, is like I get it that, the Dodge character, he's been working his entire life to getting his own command of like a nuclear submarine. And like obviously this like diesel sub from Korea is meant to be a huge like insult, like haha, prank on you type
Yeah, to
deal.
humiliate him.
And he takes it that way. But like imagine being tasked, like it's like I said, imagine you are tasked with creating the Navy equivalent of that one Army unit that like is a super highly sought after job to get. And it's like after this, like after the whole movie, like you know the admiral's like the the, the good admiral, that is Patches O'Houlihan. I forget what his actual name in this movie is. I'm just calling him Patches O'Houlihan from Dodgeball.
Hmm.
But I'm like, you just you just had like we had this whole entire movie that showed how much fun you had doing this one particular mission that was supposed to be like a slap to your honor, basically, like someone throwing down the white glove at your feet. And it's like you won, congratulations, here's your nuclear submarine. If I was in his shoes after seeing the things that they experienced and the amount of fun that they had doing it, I would have been like, hey admiral, can I just keep the diesel boat and have this be my like everyday job?
Hmm. Yeah, I really thought there'd be a moment at the end. Like, I was 10 minutes in the movie, and I was like, yeah, there's going to be a moment in the end where he succeeds, and they're going to offer him a nuclear sub. However, he's going to be like, thanks, but no thanks, Captain. This diesel sub's my baby. But no,
Yeah, I mean we get a little bit of that when he's like, I would prefer to keep my crew.
yeah,
So
that was a heartwarming moment.
yeah, so I mean we did get that a little bit, but I really wanted him to be like, no, this is my boat now.
So, what are they
Which
going to do with the ship now?
it's a that's a great question, because they, in this movie they brought it up to like fully functioning and whatnot. but I don't know if you know anything about the actual submarine they used to do some of the filming on this. Which that's one of my. I will admit it. I'm being pedantic about this, and I get it's not. It's a comedy film, and it's not really reasonable to have the interior of the sub to be like super accurate. But my God, was the interior of this diesel boat like so fucking spacious?
Yeah, I was gonna say I thought space was a premium on subs.
It is. I don't know if you've ever been on a submarine,
I haven't.
but uh, they're super tight. There's quite a few museum ships, and actually, so the USS Stingray in this film, in real life, it is the USS Pampanito. I think I'm saying that right. The USS Pampanito, and it was a sub that served during World War II, and it actually sank like 6 or 7 Japanese ships during the war. So it had like an impressive service record. Um, but I have actually been to this particular submarine because it's a museum ship and it's docked in San Francisco, and you pay like your $10 or $15 and you can walk around it for like an hour. And that was my thing. I was like, I have been on this boat and it does not fucking look like that.
Inaccuracy. Yeah.
Yeah, and and I know this is a silly thing. Like I get it's pedantic, but it's just like it irks me because there are certain scenes you're like, yeah, this was 100% shot on this ship. Like when they first get onto the boat and they're like unloading their stuff and like dusting the cobwebs off of cots, and you're like, oh yeah, that's like an actual crew quarters area. Like it's super tight and packed there, and like the captain's cabin is super tight and whatnot. But then you go to like the control room, and it's like this giant space. It's like the diesel boat like control room is the same size as the nuclear submarines, and it's like no.
Yeah, like I guess they did have to cut some corners for the movie.
Like I said, it's a comedy. Like
Mm-hmm. Not
I
a
don't.
documentary.
Yeah, I'm not holding it to that high of a standard. Now, if we were watching a movie like Das Boot or something that's supposed to be like a hardcore "this is the way it was" type movie, then I would be butthurt about it. So, who is your favorite character in this movie? Because there's a lot of great characters, and a lot of the primary actors are very like steeped in the 90s, and it was one of those things that's like I was so shocked to see Patton Oswalt have just
Oh
like
yeah.
like he's in the background, he has like a single line that's unimportant, and it's like 20 years from this movie you are going to be the biggest, like one of the biggest names in comedy, and everybody else here is like we'll still remember Kelsey Grammer, but everybody else is going to be like, oh, it's that guy.
Oh yeah, that guy. But yeah, like when you proposed this movie, I even remember like we were looking at the cast and I had never even heard of this movie before. And I was like, no shit, Patton Oswalt's in this? And I don't even think his character got a name. He had one line. He didn't even get a cutesy little intro like the other crew members did.
Yeah, nothing quirky about him. He's the one normal guy on the crew.
And what was he, the radio guy? I think.
So the radio guy was Sonar. No, that was Nitro. I love the character of Nitro.
No, that's my actual name. That's not a nickname.
What was his proposed nickname? Is like Keith or something like that.
I don't remember.
But no, I love Nitro. Just and like I get his whole shtick was like saying absurd nonsense, but it cracked me up every time where it's like, "Don't worry, Captain, I'll get it running like a Swiss car."
That's right. It's kind of like Ricky from Trailer Park Boys and his running gag of fucking up basic sayings. Like instead
Right.
of water under the bridge, oh, we're cool now. We're water under the fridge.
So who is your character in this?
I really like Dodge. Like, he's old timey military guy. Doesn't take himself too seriously, but still holds a higher standard to his crew.
Yeah, he's unorthodox, but you can still tell that he's got like a high amount of professionalism, if that's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, and
It's like why can't you be the best at your job and also have fun?
yeah, if you can't have fun with it, what's the point? And he really understands that the crew is one family. That's a saying in the Russian Navy. It's a song. Real toe tapper, by the way. Yeah, he just keeps everything together.
I know we mentioned it before, but what do you think of the Rob Schneider character in this film?
I wonder what happened to him.
That was another um, trope that they played in this, as far as like the submarine movie genre goes, which is the Captain XO tense or like rivalry, if you will. Like that's a pretty common recurring theme. But I mean, my God, they wound this character up so tightly, and I know that's the point. But Jesus, like I have a hard time thinking of anybody actually being like that in real life.
Oh, I bet there's dozens, if not hundreds, in the military.
Also, if I remember correctly, he's the only one in this film that throws around the R word.
Yeah. I can't help but feel like that was also done so we don't feel bad about him getting marooned at the end of his character arc. Also, that's a punishable offense, right?
What, marooning him or
Yeah, like I really do feel like he'd at least get a stern chin wagging when they find out what happened to Executive Officer Rob Schneider.
yeah, I'm not really up on my military code of justice, but something tells me that that's probably a no bueno situation.
Oh yeah.
Um, but to be fair, Rob Schneider did commit mutiny, so you
Yeah.
can't have no traitors on a submarine.
What was I gonna say? Crap.
And I mean, it says a lot too when like the one character Stepanek who doesn't want to be there and is actively trying to find a way to get out of anything, like still doesn't do anything to like screw everybody else over. Like that was a great moment in the movie for me where the captain goes to him and he's like, we could have been toast if you'd just been loud or noisy or whatever. And his response is like, I'm only out to screw myself over. Like, I'm not going to ruin it for everybody else.
And by the time the movie ends, he's won their respect. So they're probably going to side with him over Rob Schneider.
Made Daddy proud.
Assuming Rob Schneider didn't die. Also, we're about 50 minutes in, and I can't believe I haven't brought this up yet. But holy shit, the CGI in this movie is so bad. Like, even by 1996's standards, that was awful.
Yeah, it wasn't great. Especially all the all the outside the submarines underneath the water scenes were just, oh my god. Or like when you see the thing I cringed at was like you would go from this scene of terrible CGI of like these two subs chasing each other, and then like at the very end of the movie when they both surface at the same time because they're making a break for the target, and you go from this really bad CGI to this very obvious like stock footage that the Navy's just had in a cabin somewhere for like a decade.
That's right.
It's like you see the one nuclear attack submarine surfacing, and it's the one that they use on every recruiting ad.
Yep. They couldn't have sprung better footage.
But I talked to a Navy recruiter when I was in high school, and obviously that's not the route I went. But if there was ever a movie that made me want to join the military, this was the one.
Oh yes, absolutely. Like this is the Navy's Top Gun. And there we have it, the single most cursed statement in this entire podcast history.
Like Tom Cruise flying an F-14 didn't do it for me, but Kelsey Grammer in a World War II sub, you got me.
Yep. There was what was I gonna say? Shit. Oh, I remember, this reminds me of this time I talked to an Air Force recruiter in high school, and I asked him if there was ever going to be a homoerotic volleyball game in the Air Force.
I'm guessing that probably didn't go over too well.
Well, he laughed and said maybe. So yeah, that was an option for me, the route I didn't go.
When I was in high school, I very much was like I was full bore. Like, I grew up in a military family. Like my dad was active duty. I lived on a military base for like half my life. And so when I got into high school, I started talking to recruiters. It was probably one of like the biggest disappointments in my life when I was told I couldn't join because I had gotten too many concussions playing football. It was soul crushing for me. But after a few years of like growing up and having a lot of friends who have served and having a lot of family members, like you hear about people who get out and they're like, you hear about all the stupid things that they go through and you're like, maybe it wasn't that bad that I didn't get to do this.
Yeah The military you hear about in ads and from recruiters is not the military I hear about from people who were there.
Yeah, and I mean it's even different. Like as someone who lived on a military base for 12 years, and granted, when I lived it, I was looking at it through like rose-colored lenses, but it's it's a lot more stressful. Like if you go and check out like any current like military TikToker or YouTuber or whatever, they'll all like that's 90% of their content is just talking about dumb shit that they have to deal with. And not to say that I don't deal with dumb shit in my day-to-day job, but like nothing so much that makes me want to start a social media career because of it.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about the road less traveled.
And like I want anybody to listen here to just keep in mind, like I said, I come from a military family, grew up on a military base. I'm very pro our military and our forces. I just also recognize the inefficiency of government, if you will.
Yeah. And I'd like our listeners to know that I don't have any military background whatsoever. And in fact, I think I'm exempt from the draft because of my toes. But Yeah, I
Oh
don't.
yeah, fun little
Nobody.
fact: Jack is missing a couple of toes.
Yeah, I'm an
One of
amputee.
the piggies went to market.
Never came back. Well, one and a half actually, and yeah, I can't name anyone in my immediate family that was in the armed forces. My great uncle, my great grandpa, several other members were in World Wars One and Two. Oh, actually, I had an uncle in Vietnam. Man,
War was the in thing back then, you know.
yeah. I'll never get the joy of dying face down in a European or Asian mud hole.
Okay, Lieutenant Dan.
Yeah, I'll have to find somewhere else to die.
Oh, what was I going to say? It was along the lines of this. Oh, I was going to say, so like any other well-adjusted person who got told no at his first choice of adult life, I decided to go to college and then got a degree in history, specializing in military history. And I definitely don't need to talk about that with my therapist. Not trying to compensate or anything. This podcast is not a compensation for anything either. Totally. I just really like film.
Oh yeah, film's great. I'm 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 a cinephile. Loves cinemas. So yeah, I think that about wraps it up for this week's episode. You
It
want to tell them
was
what we're watching next week?
well. We still got to rate this thing.
Oh
We
right,
gotta
the
we got.
mushroom clouds.
I think we got to stick with the thermometer. Whether
Oh
or not
right, we usually watch. Yeah. I'm pulling it up. Periscope. Rotten Tomatoes. Thank you, Google. Oh wow, you want to take a stab in the dark about what this one is?
34.
Okay, so it has an 11% critical rating, but it has a 62% audience score. So it's one of those movies.
So what it averages out to like a 35 or a 40.
I don't know how the math works. There's over 25,000 audience ratings and 35 critic ratings, so
So
it's
here's what I would say is that the critic rating is unequivocally wrong. Like don't get me wrong, like I understand that the year that this came out, we had Braveheart and Apollo 13, you know, some truly landmark films. I get it. Periscope Down is not those films. On the flip side of that coin, it never was meant to be.
it absolutely wasn't. You're right. It knew what
It
it was.
it knew it was a comedy, and I think it accomplished it very well. And in the grand scheme of even like parody films, like I think this is a great parody film. You
It
know,
is.
we see so many of the things that we look for in submarine movies, but it's not like so in your face like how like Scary Movie is with the horror movie genre.
Yeah, so I got to go with the audience rating on this. I think that's very apt. Shit, I might bump it up to a 65% as well.
I would probably agree with that. I think the audience rating is just about right where it should be, because it's a funny story. It's a good story. There are great characters. Like obviously, it's not like highbrow media, but I paid attention to it. I never like looked down at my phone when I was watching this movie. Like I was entertained.
Absolutely. And that's all I ask of my media.
Like, did I have any critical thinking? Not really. I mean, the only critical thinking I had about this film was because I was watching it in the context of trying to think of things to say for this show.
And you really can't watch a movie like this with a very critical mindset.
No, because that's not the goal. It's like
Exactly.
it's like trying to come up with a like a movie thesis paper for college off of this film's competitor, Billy Madison.
Did did you do that?
No.
Oh, it sounded like you were pulling from personal experience. Like, really, Billy Madison?
No, I'm sure there's probably somebody out there that has a thesis paper about Billy Madison, and I would love to read it. But no, that's not something I did. My my thesis paper for history was about Civil War naval technology. So,
Wow.
which fun fact for our viewers is I'm actively in the process of defiling my body with as many tattoos as possible. And one, I do have a World War II submarine tattooed on my bicep in memory of one of my family members. But I also have the modern Merrimack from the Civil War tattooed on my feet.
And I have a grand total of one tattoo. It's above my chopped off toes and it says "Gone to Market." But I recently got a time nailed down for my second tattoo.
Yeah,
It's
what are you going to do for this one?
a Jack of Hearts playing card over my left pectoral.
Oh yes, you told me about that.
Yeah.
What's it stand for?
Jack of Hearts. My name is Jack, and it's over my heart. Everyone's gonna think I'm a gambler when I get it, but I just think the card aesthetic is cool.
See, that was your opportunity to tell me to fuck off. Like,
No, I kind of see where you're coming from. Like, the best tattoos are the ones that have stories behind them, in my opinion. Them, them, and joke tattoos.
I can't. We're going to keep it a secret for now, but I can't wait for we have a tandem joke tattoo planned. So,
Holy shit! You know what I just realized?
huh?
We went this entire movie review
Oh my god!
without mentioning the penis tattoo. What is wrong with us? We're literally 15 seconds away from the hour mark, and we didn't once mention the penis tattoo.
You know what? This is a great segue for that. And I feel so stupid because I have it written down on my notepad here in front of me for just things I wanted to talk about. My God, it it plays zero bearing on this story, but it just gets thrown out every time. It like I feel like this was their like Hail Mary, like this is the line we want to be popular. You know, going back to the like this is what all the high school kids are going to be saying in the hallways.
Yep.
Is I need a man with a tattooed penis.
Like it's even said in the first 5 minutes. Like, didn't he get a welcome aboard tattoo on his penis?
Or like when the admiral's like, I want his tattooed hide on my door. I'm like, ugh.
Ugh. Captain, what was the incident? Like the noodle incident that they talk about but never really explain, like the brushing at Minsk, Manx. Help me out here. What was it?
Oh, I guess I don't really remember that. Is that where they're talking about where he like comes in contact with like a Russian submarine?
Something like that. He got in trouble, and that's why he's being demoted in this movie.
Yeah.
But or kicked upstairs is the proper term. But
So
the
here's my question for you, and this again is a pedantic thing, and maybe I'm just reading too much into it. Like, I get it. Welcome aboard, Navy pun, laughs all around. But welcome aboard implies going into or inside of a ship, doesn't it?
I mean, think about it this way: he's the captain of a submarine, and he has it on his dick, and both his dick and the submarine are long, hard, and full of semen. That's
Uh,
might have been what he's going for.
I'm just saying that maybe we could have put something else like prepare for launch or something, or like torpedoes away.
I'm not well versed enough in naval terms to contribute to this, but or yeah, and oh yeah, this is where I was going. She even mentions like because she has a bad case of the boohoos after brushing against no hitting the bottom of the ocean, which that was their goal anyway, but whatever. And she's like, "What did you do after the brushing at Mince, whatever?" He's like, "Well, I got drunk, woke up with a tattoo. I don't recommend the tattoo."
I mean, it depends. One might be more painful than the other, depending on how hard you drank.
It doesn't sound like he remembers getting the tattoo itself, but can you imagine like the itch?
I don't know. I shouldn't say I've never gotten a party tat, but I've never gotten a drunken party tat.
Me neither, but I'm still young. Um,
Well, I told you about my party tat, right?
no.
Oh, it was so for those who are familiar with the tattoo world, I got a tattoo done by Oliver Peck, which for those who aren't that into it, he was one of the judges on the Spike TV show Ink Master for like forever, and he's widely regarded as one of the best like American traditional tattooers. And so I put my name on his wait list maybe like 2 years ago, and I didn't hear anything because that's just how popular he is. His wait list is forever. And one day I got an email that's like, I have an open appointment tomorrow at this time. Either you can take it or I'll give it to somebody else. So I'm like, I'll be there. Never mind the fact that I had to drive 8 hours to make it, but um, because he was this was during like the Sturgis bike rally, and so I uh, I was like, "Yep, sign me up." And so he sent me a message. He's like, "I'll give you the location where we'll do the tattoo like a half hour beforehand." And I'm like, "This seems sketchy, but all right." And I was like, "Oh, he's probably like working out of a local shop or something, like having a guest chair or something." No, like we did it in the back of his RV.
How was it though?
Oh, it's fantastic. It's easily my favorite tattoo, and also it's just a heck of a story.
It
But
is.
after waiting 2 years to see this world renowned tattoo artist, I wasn't expecting to have it done on his kitchen table. But life is all about experiences.
It really is. So let's let's rate this on a scale of anchors.
You sure you don't want to do 1 to 10 tattooed penises?
Fuck it, let's do tattooed penises. Out of
Okay.
10, you say?
Yeah. Do we want to do like a custom rating? We can say whether or not we agree with the thermometer, and then we'll do a custom rating for ourselves.
Let's do it.
All right. Scale of 1 to 10 tattooed penises. I give this. I give it 6 regular size tattooed penises and 1 fully erect chode.
I give it 6.5 tattoos. 6.5 tattooed penises. See, the half is the one's not finished yet, but is working on it.
I don't know how we're going to work. I'm sure, like at some point, somebody's going to keep a spreadsheet to like compare and contrast, and I don't know how they're going to break down an untattooed penis versus a tattooed penis. Also,
Well,
I don't think I've said penis this much in a single day.
Penis. It's just an
Penis.
average day for me. But yeah, I agree with the audience tomometer, not the critic tomometer. Got to give it to the people on this one.
So yeah, overall positive experience. Highly recommend.
Yep.
Just
It's
keep
a feel good movie.
just keep in mind it's a product of the 90s.
Yes,
Not
go
not
into
not everything is going to sit well with you.
see it not with a critical eye. Wow, that was beautiful.
It
Chef's
was
kiss.
you are quite the philosopher.
Hella.
So I think this is about the time where we'll pick our next film. This week it's your turn. So what are we going with, Jack?
I chose the movie Wind Talkers with Nicolas Cage.
If I remember, that was 2002.
2002 or 2003, early 2000s.
I remember actually
2002.
I remember actually seeing this movie in theaters, so it'll be interesting to
Huh.
return to it.
Cool.
Yeah, my parents had kind of a weird philosophy when it came to letting me see movies. Like I remember seeing Black Hawk Down on opening day, and I was like 6 or 7.
And I haven't seen that movie, so that's another potential pick for me.
I can't wait to talk about the compare and contrast of what I remember from that versus what it is now. But do you want to give a synopsis of it for our listeners?
Wait, of Wind Talkers?
Yes.
Oh. Um, mo- See, I haven't actually seen this movie before. That's part of the reason why I picked it. But it's about the Navajo code talkers of World War II. Fascinating tale, really. Interesting history that we will talk about in the next episode.
Sounds good. And before we go, I just wanted to address our last episode. I understand and I'm fully aware that last episode did not sound good whatsoever. And hopefully we've resolved all of those issues. And if we haven't, then I'm a big dumb idiot and I'm sorry for that. But hopefully, like I said, we have fixed it. You got anything?
Nope. Nothing.
Um, Before we sign off, if you like the show, leave us a review. Stars matter. We're up on Instagram and Facebook, so give us a follow, a like, whatever you will. It's also where we'll post updates and whatnot, funny memes.
Mm-hmm.
Until then, had a great time. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I've been John,
And I'm Jack.
and we will catch you next time.